Oh, it's 8 o'clock. Show starts. No! Welcome, Go Noakes Book Club, episode number 2, aka beta test number 2, because we still don't know what the we're doing.
We're adding a few more new segments today, or one or two at least, and getting some stuff ready for next time when we probably have our first full, all the pieces episode.
Fully realized, completely developed, not half-assed episode.
Mm-hmm.
Not that we half-ass anything, we're super professional here. Yes, yes.
You're recording now, right?
Yes, everyone can hear the dumbness that we are saying. They could have heard it for the last few minutes, too, so.
Okay.
My name is Brony Curious. I'm the author and illustrator for Scissor Hoops Slighted and Recovery, and I'm eating lemon cookies.
Wow, that's classy.
I try.
Okay, and I'm Pegasus Rescue Brigade. I'm the author of several pony fanfics, the most popular of which is Shipping and Handling. I'm also an Equestria Daily pre-reader. Okay, so anyway.
So what are we doing on the show today? What are we doing? Should we talk about what we're doing on the show today?
We could go over it quick, the list of stuff.
We're going to talk about horses.
We're starting with our content spotlights, like we do most weeks.
We've done one show. What do you mean most weeks?
Well, like we're going to do most weeks.
Oh, you gotta specify that.
Yes, I do. Bad PRB.
Yeah.
To pay attention to detail. I write stories. I can't make plot holes.
Minus 20 points.
I also
for
can't
Gryffindor.
use that word on a pony podcast.
Dun, dun, dun.
And our review for today, there haven't been any new episodes lately, so we are actually going to take a look at the official My Little Pony comics by, who is it? Andy Price?
Eddie Price and Katie Cook.
What's after that? Roundtable?
Jump
Explain to them
into-
how Roundtable works.
So Roundtable is when we're going to talk about aspects of storytelling and provide advice, insight, or general tomfoolery about our creative process or our opinions on the creative process for people who are interested in starting to write stories. The advice is usually going to extend probably beyond just writing fanfiction to writing fiction in general. But sometimes it will probably be fanfic-specific things, such as keeping characters that are established in character, and things like that. Tonight, however, we're going to be focusing on getting started, since it's the first segment. I figured that was probably a good place to start. Would you agree, sir?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, can't do much with the
You better agree, we already planned on
details
doing
of a story if you haven't actually gotten anything to build on.
this. Yeah, so I figured that'd probably be a good place to start. You know, if you've never done it before, or if you're just struggling to get started, like, ways to kind of get the creative ball rolling, as it were. After that, we'll close out with a Q&A session like we did last week, and then we will announce our first contest. So, that is what we plan on doing, hopefully, within the next hour or so. And
There's free stuff up for grabs, people, so
there
stay
is free
tuned.
stuff. The contest actually is not completely pointless. There will be swag that is acquirable if you are the victor, if you outclass everyone else. So, everyone in the chat right now is now your enemy, so keep that in mind. Don't get too attached to any of them. Now that we've kind of broken everything down, let's actually get started. You want to start with the content spotlight? Let's do that. Let's start with that.
Yeah, go ahead and do yours.
Oh, okay, fine, I'll do mine first. So my content spotlight for the week that I wanted to talk about is something I actually just stumbled upon, I believe, last week. And it is by my friend, well, now he's my friend, I didn't know who he was before, on DeviantArt. His username is Dreamer Die. And it is a comic adaptation of Short Skirts and Explosions fiction Background Pony. And it's incredibly well done. Let me actually try and pull it up so I can actually see what I'm talking about. The reason I wanted to bring it up is because it's drawn incredibly well. It's very accurate to the fanfiction itself. But also, this guy busts out pages insultingly quickly. And it's like he does like a page a day, pretty much. He's on a small hiatus right now, but here is page 15. He's currently at 22 pages, which if you know how long Background Pony the fic is, he's barely scratched the surface, but he is planning on doing the whole thing, and if he does a page a day, it'll probably get done sooner rather than later. So the whole comic is in black and white. It might be hard to tell over the live stream, but if you go and look at his gallery, he does this really nice thing with it's kind of like pen and ink kind of wash texture. All the grays have like this really interesting texture that makes it look like it's done with like watered down inks when it's all done digitally.
Can you zoom in on that at all in the stream?
Yeah, so if we want to kind of get a closer look
Give them
at
a
it,
better...
kind of zoom in.
Somebody asked what this is called. This is a comic adaptation of the fanfic Background Pony.
which is very good. It's technically I'm also spotlighting that because the fan fiction I've read a few chapters of it, and it's incredibly well done as well. It's very heavy though, and what I mean by heavy is like I'm like big into like philosophy and stuff, and there are times where it feels like I'm reading a philosophy text because it really gets very existential, very deep, and I can only usually read like a chapter at a time because it's a lot to process. And it starts out really cute and happy, and it just spirals out of control pretty quickly. So, and I had no idea when I started reading the comic, he hadn't gotten to any of the feels yet. So I was like, oh, this is gonna be a happy little story, yeah. And it didn't last. So I read the first chapter of the fic, and it just like shit all over my feels. I was like, what the fuck is going on? I like sent him a message, just like, you've destroyed my heart. But it's really good. It's a great adaptation. And I think the artwork really adds an interesting dimension to everything. My favorite pages he's done so far, let me try and grab that for you, is page 19. I'll kind of put this back over here. You can look at PRB's face while I find it. So fine. I mean, no, it's, he adds a lot of, like, really great visual language, because the story itself is written really well, but what I like about the way it's written is it doesn't bog down too much with visual descriptions. You know, it doesn't like describe where everything is. It kind of operates under the assumption that you know what Ponyville looks like and things like that. So it doesn't take too much time to describe things like that. And that's where Dream or Die really kind of does some great things. If we look at this panel, this is in the story, it just says Lara went to Sugar Cube Corner, and he took the entire time to like really do this really like nice dynamic camera angle with a ton of detail, and like he added in Rainbow Dash and Bon Bon, which weren't mentioned in the fic at all. Like Rainbow Dash isn't mentioned at all in the first chapter, but he just added her there just for like, you know, visual flourishing, and it really helps take a simple kind of passage of like Lara goes to Sugar Cube Corner and emphasizes it and really makes it very effective. And this is what I really enjoy about the fic itself. And the fact that he did this whole page in less than a day, like you're like, man, I hate doing backgrounds, and then he posted this like a few hours later. It's like, I hate you, you suck, but you're amazing. So I recommend both reading the fan fiction slowly. Don't do it all in one day. I couldn't, and I don't know like if you'll survive that amount of thought-provoking emotional feel death. But definitely check out the comic. They're both really well done. So Background Pony, the fic by Short Shorts and Explosions, and the comic adaptation by Dream or Die. You're up, bro.
Cool. All right. Are you gonna drag over that window or whatever like you did last time?
Yeah. So
okay.
Link to whatever you want. And
I already gave you the link.
I did. Shit. All right. Let me grab it again. So why don't you talk about it, and I'll.
Okay. Yeah, the content that I chose to highlight today is a in-progress fanfic called Integration by Raugos. This is not complete yet, or anywhere near it. It doesn't seem like, because it's the pacing is slow, but it's really working for it so far. The premise is pretty simple. Caramel has gone off to the Changeling Hive and offers to join them in order to be with his special sun pony, who he has discovered has always been a changeling. With that rather simple starting point, he's really developed the few characters that are in this. There's not really anyone of significance in this yet, except Caramel, his mare friend Sassaflash, who is actually a changeling. And for anyone who doesn't know who Sassaflash is, she's that yellow and turquoise Pegasus that he's seen rubbing noses with in Hearts and Hooves Day. And Chrysalis is the other major character. Each chapter starts out at first with a flashback to Caramel's like school days. It's slowly exploring the relationship that Caramel has had with Sassaflash ever since the two of them were foals. And it's a story about how the changelings are still, you know, a group of foul creatures that are trying to take over Equestria under Chrysalis and everything, but they're not completely heartless monsters. The changeling who's been posing as Sassaflash has been able to maintain friendship with Caramel for their whole lives, and only recently, now that he's discovered this, it hasn't changed his relationship with her up to the point that he's gone off to to try to join their colony in order to be with her. And she is equally happy about this. The interesting thing about this story is it's taking a lot of time to examine the past relationships between the characters, because not a whole lot has happened in the 4 chapters that are here so far. There's already, a good 17,000 words or something of this fic so far. He's been laying in a pit for like 3 chapters, honestly. And but stuff's been going on down there, and it seems like this author is able to keep it interesting, and you really get to care about the characters, but at the same time the pace is slow. So in this case, I actually think the pace is a good thing, because I like it the way it is, so it's going to probably drag on to a fairly significant novel-sized story here. Yeah, I'm just interested to see what kind of further challenges Caramel will have to overcome in order to keep this relationship up, and also to see more information about past experiences, since those are only being given a piece at a time at the beginning of each chapter as a flashback before the main story continues. So they haven't even gotten to the point yet where Caramel discovered that Sassaflash was a changeling, and I'm interested to see what his reaction is going to be there. So yeah, I'm been following it kind of ravenously, grabbing each new chapter each time it comes out here. It's been posted to Equestria Daily, and yeah, I'm really singing the praises of this right now and excited for it to continue.
Awesome.
Seems like a work of characterization that is pretty impressive compared to a lot of other stories I've read.
Yeah,
and I'm sure that the plot is going to be good too. I just don't even really have a clue where it's going to go yet. What's going to happen to Caramel after the Hive has integrated him?
Yeah, you would think there'd probably be some sort of negative repercussion for that in some way, shape, or form, but...
Yeah, and he was willing to make a sacrifice to be with Sassaflash, but it's not clear how much of an extent that will have yet.
Alright, so that is integration. Sounds like a really interesting story about Caramel, who never... He doesn't get a lot of attention.
I've never been a big... fan of Caramel before this, actually, but this is one of the more interesting stories I've seen about him.
That's pretty sweet. Yeah, so I'll probably read this fairly soon, if not right after the show, because I'm curious to see.
Yeah, it's not very long yet. It's updating semi-regularly.
Yeah, they updated a few days ago.
Comic review.
So we're going to talk about the official MLP comic, which is being published by IDW. And it is written by Katie Cook and drawn by Andy Price. And I don't recall who the colorist is, because I'm dumb. Let me find out. Let me open up my issue. Colors by Heather Breckel. Letters by Robbie Robbins. Edited by Bobby Curnow. Does anybody care about them? They should, but I don't. I didn't know who they were. Alright, so this book is pretty interesting in so much the fact that commercially it's done incredibly well. How is the book itself? I mean, that's kind of, I figured what we would talk about, because commercially it's done fine. I went into it pretty hesitantly, because I was interested because it's comics, and I love comics, and it's ponies, and I love ponies. So, but still, I'd never heard of Andy Price's work, or Katie Cook as a writer before, so I wasn't sure how they would handle the characters. And all the other narrative content outside of the show that we've gotten so far has been horrendously bad.
Then again, all other narrative content has been directed at the younger audience.
Exactly. So
this was clearly directed at the bronies.
This was definitely something, and that's interesting because you can definitely tell they know who their audience is, but it's not done in a way that the target audience for the franchise as a whole couldn't pick it up and enjoy it for what it is. And that was one of the things I really wanted to talk about, is that it definitely rides the line between being completely the same in tone as the show, but also kind of pushing it a little bit further, and it feels like it's written for an older audience, when it kind of isn't. It's really hard to describe. I was trying to sit there and figure, how do I phrase this? It's something you just have to read, because the characters are written spot on. They feel and act exactly like you would expect them to. So Katie Cook understands these characters incredibly well.
Do you have Do you have an example page or anything to put up here?
Yeah, I was planning on pulling some stuff up.
Okay.
So.
So I have the first one in digital copy, but assumingly you'd have something here too.
I bought them all in physical form. Because I wanted all my covers. I got 2 derpy covers. I should send you one. Here is an example page. So you can kind of see what we're talking about here. This is a good example of when I say that it's written in the same vein as a show, but you can also tell that it's written for an older audience, because check this out. Look at that guy. He's like totally a ponified version of that meme dude. I don't even know what you call that meme, but I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. And there's little things.
I don't know.
There's little things like this throughout the whole issue. The writing, I thought, has been incredibly solid. I think everyone acted in character. There have been great gags throughout the books, especially with issue 2. There was tons of things with Rarity, which I loved.
The writing doesn't feel too off from an episode either. Maybe it's a little bit different, and of course it's the ongoing story throughout the comics here.
Yeah, which is great, because usually with the show you get the slice of life 22 minutes and then it's done, with the exception of the 2-parters, which are usually feel kind of rushed because they're trying to do a lot in 40 minutes. But this is an ongoing story. They set up the story in the first issue, and they continued it through the second one, and it ended and it's still going on. So it sounds like, or it appears to be, that there's going to be one overarching plotline for at least the next few issues, and it's great to see these characters interacting in a way that extends for such a long period of time, because it can set up plot points, set up points of contention between the characters, and develop them for long periods of time, and have things continue from the last point. The end of the second issue specifically kind of divides the characters up a bit, and normally that would be established and resolved within the span of like 10 minutes of each other, but here it's gonna probably continue for at least the whole second issue, and it's just great to kind of see that vein of storytelling be able to be applied to these characters and done well. So I think the writing has probably been the best part about the book. Not to say that Andy Price's work is bad. I really like his artwork, especially a lot of the facial expressions he does. Like I mean, look at Fluttershy here.
There's some really amazing stuff in here.
Like, that's awesome. You know, like we have all these zombie ponies, and then we have like Rarity freaking out. You know, then they're freaking out down here, and just the way he draws the characters, I said was very loose, which is a good and a bad thing, because sometimes the proportions kind of get a little wonky here and there, and sometimes like things kind of get a little too bendy for me. But at the same time, when he like takes that and instead of like fighting against it, like works with it and makes his characters just do like bizarre things, it just works incredibly well.
Take note, people. This is the category where only one of the hosts knows what he's talking about. In terms of specific characters bringing out some of their funniest traits from the show, especially in the second issue, I was cracking up at the CMC.
Yeah, the CMC are kind of stole the show for both issues.
They spent the whole comic trapped in a changeling pod, and they don't seem concerned. They're just
like whatever,
just discussing their next attempt at getting cutie marks. And talking about they're having that one argument of tennis versus badminton versus bocce ball. I'm just like, yeah.
it's really good. And speaking of which, like, Chrysalis is really great in this book as well. So spoilers, sort of, because you kind of know as soon as you open up the book and read the cover or the title of the book, is that this is chronicling the return of Queen Chrysalis, and she ends up kidnapping the CMC to bait the main 6 out to come and rescue them. It gives them, I think, like a 2-day deadline to rescue them.
3 days, I think it was.
Is it 3 days? I haven't read it in a while. I bought it the day it came out. So yeah, 3 days to get them. And so the whole book apparently is going to take place over these 3 days, and how they try and get there and save them. And the CMC are just completely oblivious to the fact they're being like held prisoner. They just don't even. It doesn't. And there's just one point where Chrysalis is just like talking about, I think it was the cave troll, how it was dumb, and then the CMC makes some remarks like, well, the second dumbest thing, because they're like in character, but they're like pushed like 150% in character, and just like are like completely ignorant of what's going on. And Chrysalis is actually rather competent, because I thought that her appearance in Camelot Wedding was questionable as far as the logic of the plan, but this time her plan actually makes a lot of sense, especially what she does with the changelings in the second issue, which I won't spoil, but it was actually a really intelligent way of handling the changelings and their abilities. So it's great because they write the main cast in character incredibly well. They all work off each other amazingly, and the villain is actually not incompetent, and because they have all this time to establish the conflict, the villain actually has enough room to breathe to actually do their job effectively. So it's just good. It's like taking the adventure arcs and giving them the time they need to actually work. And that's what I think I really like about this comic, because everyone likes the adventure arcs that they've done in the show, but they do feel very rushed because they have such a limited amount of time to tell the whole story, and this is like giving them all the time they need to make it work better. So when I finished...
And on a much more frivolous note, it's nice to see Derpy now and then in an official piece of...
Yeah, she had a great cameo in issue 1, so...
And the spider in issue 2, didn't you notice?
Yeah.
That one spider with her cutie mark. Anyway, so that's the writing and the art. Was there something else you wanted to go over about this?
I don't... Let me check my notes, see if I said anything else. I think I touched on everything I wanted to touch on, so let's
Being all professional today, you actually brought some notes along this time.
Of course, now talking about the notes on air makes it seem significantly less professional.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so... Yeah, did that. The only other thing I wanted to say is that they are doing a lot of world building. Because they're leaving Ponyville, going to like other locations. They establish like the cave troll guy, and just it's nice to show that Equestria is like not just a small town and like a big castle that is connected by railways. But when they take some time and really show that it's like a living, breathing world, and there's a lot of stuff going on in there, and this comic takes a lot of time to do that. Since they're leaving Ponyville and going to all these other places trying to find the Changeling Hive, it leaves a lot of space to introduce new locations, which is something that's a lot easier to do in comics than to do in animation, so they're kind of taking advantage of the medium from a visual standpoint, which works really well. So, overall, I said this after I finished reading issue 1 when it came out in October? I think it was October. November.
Yeah.
It came out in November. I enjoyed it more than I enjoyed the show. And reading issue 2, I kinda still think that because of the quality of the writing, that it kind of is more enjoyable than watching the show. So, I really love this comic, and it's not just because it's a comic. Just from the story alone and the way the characters are written, it's just incredibly well done, in my opinion. And I think the fact that they have a little bit more room to breathe, develop characters better, and to kind of like bolster up the writing and have it be a bit stronger than it would be in a normal episode. I think for someone who's a fan of the show, it's a real nice treat to have. So I would say the official My Little Pony comic issues 1 and 2, pick them up because they're really good. Do you agree? Do you disagree?
I don't know. I am more determined to get my hands on the episodes of the show than the issues of this comic. But that's probably simply because of the medium. I'd rather see the animation than read a book. I mean, the story is good and possibly better than what it is a lot of the times in the show, but I mean, there are a few episodes that I really just can't think of anything too negative to say about them. Although I am known to be one of the people who gives the show a lot more slack than other people, takes the writer's decisions in stride. So, I don't know if my if my opinion counts there, but yeah, I mean the comic is very good. I just think that I'd still rather see the episodes right now, but
Shun the non-believer. Shun. Alright, cool. So, yeah, if you guys haven't checked out the book, definitely do it. I think if you're a fan of the show, you'll be a fan of the comic because it's just more of what you love. So, I'm definitely interested in seeing where they take the arc, and I'm also interested in seeing more of Katie and Andy's work outside of this comic, because I've seen a lot of Andy's gallery on his DeviantArt, and his stuff's really impressive. He does a lot of watercoloring, because everything he does is traditional. He doesn't use computers at all. So, I was kind of disappointed to see that they had a digital colorist for this book. I mean, it's a lot quicker, obviously, and since they're doing it on a month-to-month basis, they had to, but his watercolor stuff's really impressive. So, if you guys like what you're seeing here, he has an awesome gallery on DA. It's andypriceart.deviantart.com, and I'll add it in the show notes. But, a lot of really good stuff there, so... yeah, check out the book. It's available through Comixology if you want to get a digital copy, or you can order it online. There's tons of variant covers, so you can kind of shop around and see which store carries a variant cover you like. Or if you have a local comics shop, go down there and support them, because it's hard for them out there. Yeah.
Yep, alright, I guess that takes care of that.
So that's the review. So, I think the next thing on our list is the round table, which is a pretty small round table. It's just two of us today.
The roundtable section is a new section where we're going to talk about some of the writing process and offer a few of our own opinions and tips for any aspiring writers that are viewing this.
Absolutely.
Usually we'll have a guest on here to join us in the discussion who will also have, you know, made some work of their own storytelling, be it a fanfic or a narrative comic or something else. But since today's our first attempt at Roundtable, we didn't have something like this in our first episode. We're still doing a dry run without a guest on today because we don't want to make complete fools of ourselves.
Yes. I mean, the fact that we're recording this and having it be viewable for everyone on the internet is already fools enough, so let's take it one step at a time here. Alright, so we figured for our first roundtable, best place to start, like we mentioned before, was kind of how do you start? You know, because writing a story is not simple. There are a lot of steps involved. There's a lot of things to consider. And as easy it is to open up Microsoft Word and start typing, to actually make something coherent that people enjoy takes a bit more thought. And there's definitely a big difference between a good fiction and a bad one. Even a bad fiction and a decent one. So I figured we could probably talk a little bit about things to do when you begin, and even before you begin, to kind of get you in the right mindset, and just things to consider when you're planning out your narrative as a whole. I think I'm the only one here with notes, so I'll start out, I suppose, since I know what I can say, and you have to think about it a little bit.
Well, I've got some stuff prepared. I just want to know where mine crosses over with yours.
Alright. So, I figured the place that I always start is inspiration. Because usually people who want to write because they like to read. They like the product and they want to make it themselves. So my first suggestion is to read a lot and to get inspired. Reading is the best research if you want to write, even if you want to do like narrative work, like visual narratives or comics and stuff like that. If you want to write a really like plot-focused story, I find that prose is usually the best examples of good storytelling, just from a basic perspective. So read a lot. Read a lot of comics, read a lot of manga, read a lot of fiction, anything like that. It's great. It's great to like kind of get exposure to a lot of different techniques that people are using, and especially the things that you like. It kind of helps you figure out what you like about it, and that helps down the road when you start writing your own stuff. Tied into that is to research. So, you know, a lot of people write a lot about writing. So the internet has everything you ever need to know ever about anything on there. So even the things you probably shouldn't know. So use that resource, because we all have it. Do a lot of research. Like, I research how to draw line art. You know, like I know like 15 different ways to do line art for comics and just drawing in general, just because that's something that I'm interested in, want to know about. So the more you know, the better off you'll be. Coloring, I do a lot of research on coloring, writing, characterizations, all that kind of stuff. The more you know about the craft, the better off you're going to be in the long run. And time invested in research and learning is never time wasted. So the more you know going into it, the better. With that being said, however, I think everything you learn should be taken with a grain of salt, because there are always times when your personal preference is going to trump what other people say is the right thing to do, even what we say, because we're not experts either. We're experts in our own process, not the process in general. Everybody has their own little things. I do a lot of my sketches and roughs in ballpoint pen. No one's ever going to tell you to draw in ballpoint pen. That's just what works for me. So there's always going to be little things here and there that work for you, but may not work for other people. And to not ignore that, even if someone tells you not to do it, it's your product at the end of the day. So you got to figure out what works best for you and what works best for somebody else on the internet.
Want me to take over a little bit here?
Yeah, man, just jump in whenever you want. This is a round table. It's a discussion. So.
Yeah, that's true. This is just a reflection on some of my process. The first thing you're going to need to write any kind of story, large or small or in any form, is the idea to start it with. The ideas, if you really like whatever you're writing about, and in our case it's ponies, I guess, as you're exposed to the world around you, you might find yourself coming up with various ideas from the strangest places sometimes. The key to coming up with a good fic is to keep track of these ideas until you can find something that you know you can really make a good story out of. I have a list of quite a few potential fanfic plot lines that I've come up with over the course of my stay here in the Brony fandom. Most of them have been rejected. Most of them I have written down, looked at it for a little while, and decided, you know what, I can't take that anywhere, and I throw it out. And then there's a few that are good. Sometimes they'll just drop into your head out of nowhere. I know I've claimed that happened with shipping and handling. I was thinking about the word shipping and the play on words you can make with that when involving Derpy. You know, first she was shipping packages, now she's shipping ponies. And from that, the rest of it just kind of spilled into my head. But, I mean, that started with just that basic idea. What you really need to do to get started is to think of something that seems interesting and original, especially in this fandom. Because it's so big, a lot of stuff doesn't get noticed anymore if you're going to write the same thing that everybody else is writing. There's so many topics for fanfics that, have just been done to death by dozens and dozens of authors. I feel like sometimes half the struggle of getting to a point where you would be able to write a good story is coming up with that one concept that is so unique that it's going to catch the attention of the potential reader right away before they even get into the story too much. Do you have anything to say about that, Brony Curious?
Yeah, I mean, definitely.
I mean, are your what are your comics reflecting on, and has it been done a lot before, or?
Well, I mean, my comic right now is all about Trixie Redemption, so that idea has probably
that one has been done before,
done
but
to death. You know?
Yeah.
I think
it's easier to get people to look at it because you're unique in your art style there.
I suppose.
When you're writing a straight fic, it's just words, you know.
Yeah.
You have to convince the audience my words are better than other said person's words who wrote the same kind of words about a similar topic.
Yeah, it's definitely it's rough because getting exposure and getting people to give your stuff a chance is really difficult. And the way that I usually approach it is I don't know much about the fanfic community overall because I haven't spent a lot of time there, and fanfic as a whole is something that's very new to me. So what I usually focus on when I'm coming up with ideas, and most of my ideas just kind of come to me, but the first thing that I usually do when I start out is a lot of experimentation. I found that a lot of the times the things that I enjoy reading and writing aren't always the same as what I enjoy creating, and it's kind of sounds a bit like backwards or bizarre, but I think a lot of us, when we want to create things, we kind of get attached to the idea of what we like is what we want to make, where it's not always the case. If you're not really attached to what you want to do and you really enjoy the process in and of itself, you're gonna fail because you have no one's gonna tell you to keep writing, no one's gonna tell you to keep drawing. It has to be something that comes, from within. Otherwise, it's never gonna happen. So definitely take some time and experiment. Like maybe you enjoy reading action, and you like reading crazy over the top dramatic action sequences. But you might find when you start writing experiments, like writing little short stories or something, you enjoy writing romance or something, and that might come out of nowhere. You might really enjoy writing conversation. And as much as you like reading the action stuff, when it comes to producing things, you find you click much more with conversation and slice of life kind of things. So that's definitely something that's happened to me. I love reading really dark and philosophical stuff with lots of crazy action, but when it comes to writing what I make, I'm very good with conversation and small talk, which is something I never even do in real life, which is kind of weird. So I can sit there and try and force myself to be overly dark and dramatic and do a lot of crazy action sequences, or I can embrace what comes naturally and really enjoy that process instead of fighting it. And I don't think
it's just going to feel too false if you're just trying to do what you like, but you don't really have a talent for describing it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely things that I think people inherently kind of click with, and it's very important to like take some time and find kind of like where you fit into that. And I think if someone is, dead set on doing something, they shouldn't do it just because it's difficult. I'm not saying like don't do it if it's hard. But again, it's not about being hard or difficult, it's about enjoying the process. Because if something's hard and you're enjoying it, then that's fine. Like, sitting in front of a computer for 8 hours drawing a page of comics that exposits like 15 seconds worth of time is hard. But I enjoy the process. So, I guess that's the difference there. Once you kind of figure out what your kind of vibe is and what you like doing, then you kind of start thinking about a story. And before I even start thinking about concept, I usually want to establish a goal. Why am I writing this? What do I want to communicate? Most good stories have some sort of theming. You don't have to have a theme, but it definitely helps solidify the events of whatever you're writing around like a central sort of idea. It doesn't have to be deep, it doesn't have to be complicated, but it needs to be there, because I find that that theme is what's going to guide your creative process. It can be as simple as, I want to have a story about guy killing vampires, and like that's the whole point of the story, is to show a guy being badass and killing vampires. Like that's the theme of your story, is this guy's just going to wreck vampires and be a vamp doing it. So that's your theme, and all of your decision making process going forward in that story, whatever you do, whether it be visual or just writing, is going to revolve around that concept. That's the core goal of the project. It can be something much deeper and say, I want my story to carefully and intrinsically explain the downfalls of modern human society and all the ways that we are throwing away the gifts that we've been given. Like that's a completely, like, much more, like, crazy complicated goal. But now that you know the goal, you can start working towards it. So it really depends on what you want to do. And I think those two kind of goals, a lot of people confuse good and bad with that, because a lot of people will look at a story that's about a guy killing vampires and say, that's crap, there's nothing to that story. But if the goal was that alone, it's accomplishing the goal perfectly fine. So good or bad depends on the goal of the project. If the goal of the project was to talk about the human downfalls of society, but all it is a guy killing vampires and being a badass, then the story has failed. But if the goal from the outset was just to do that, then it's doing fine. So I usually start with a goal. My goal with the story I'm working on right now is to redeem Trixie as a character and to make her empathetic in the eyes of the audience. Those are the goals of the story. So all the decisions I've made going forward since then are working to accomplish that goal. So once you have a goal, then you kind of tie that into what you enjoy creating. So I enjoy the medium of comic books, and I enjoy doing slice of life and conversation. So taking the goal, taking what I enjoy doing, melding those together, and creating an idea. So this kind of goes tons of different ways for me, and I think for anybody. This is the part of the creative process where things start to become more concrete and less kind of floaty, I guess. And it can start tons of different ways. You can start with coming up with characters. You can start coming up with a basic plot line, just a general idea, and like really start solidifying the idea and making it a bit more complex. Or you can come up with the lore, like the newest original story that I've come up with, which is kind of on hiatus right now. Before I came up with characters, a plot line, or anything, I developed the entire world that it took place in. I don't know why, that's just where I started. So it's very, very loose. But I think the first thing is to get the idea, establish your goal, and then taking what you like and kind of interweaving those two.
So once you've gotten that far, you need to figure out how you're going to get to that goal. And that's usually pretty easy to do with the help of an outline or something. You don't want to just dive in and start writing and hope you wind up there. You need it's good to make a map first so you know where you're going, and you don't end up just start writing and wind up completely miles away from the point that you were trying to make at the end of the chapter or end of the story. I know with all my fics, I usually sit down and get started on an outline first, a basic one for the whole story, and then I'll over time write one for each chapter. And then sometimes while I'm writing a chapter, I'll think of something interesting that could make a connection later, and will go and modify one of my outlines for a later chapter to fit that point that I thought of while writing the earlier one. And you can end up making some pretty cool connections across the whole story arc if you keep all your thoughts and points of the storyline organized. In regards to writing fiction, I'm a big supporter of making outlines first. Just drawing yourself a route to take with your writing before you jump in and start pouring out thousands of words onto the paper only to find out that they don't lead anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I have a huge folder full of like pre-production stuff. I write down pretty much everything, even the bad ideas, so I can remind it that was a bad idea, not to do it again.
Yep, I have a notebook full of tons of scribblings, all sorts of crossed out versions of my existing stories, and somewhere lost in there the outlines that eventually led to the stuff that I have posted online since then.
Yeah, the outline is great. Once you get to the point where you start having like a tangible idea that can be given an outline, it's great to kind of just really quickly just try and lay out the entire thing.
Yeah.
So you have at least a rough idea of beginning,
sometimes
middle,
if you really can't think of where you're going to be at the end of the story, if you have the ideas for where the first chapter is going to go, write your first chapter if you have all those plans laid out. I know when I started writing Shipping and Handling, which is 13 chapters, I actually wasn't too sure where I was going with it yet, but by the time I had established my characters in Chapter 1, I had actually gotten, in the process of writing that, sort of forced a whole bunch of additional ideas into my head, and it was pretty easy to write out a skeletal version of the story for my own reference purposes then in my notebook after the first 1 or 2 chapters were published.
Yeah, because right now, I'm working on Recovery. It's the first issue is completely planned out, the second issue is written, the third issue is written, the 6th issue is written. I have no idea what's happening in 4 or 5. That's like the whole meat and potatoes middle of it. I know how it starts and how it ends. But like how it gets from point A to point B is still... I have ideas but nothing coherent. So my thing is, like, most of the stuff from issue 3 on is all going to be very dialogue based. And dialogue comes naturally to me, so I'm just kind of hoping as I start writing it'll kind of materialize. It really depends on, again, how you work, and that's where comes back to experimenting. Are you better writing off the cuff and just kind of playing it by ear and having it work out, or do you need a stringent structure? For me, I definitely work better with structure, but there are times when, like for things like dialogue, I can write those pretty loosely without having to have anything planned out. But if I was gonna like do an action sequence or anything beyond writing, I can write pretty good, but when it comes to like drawing, I need to do thumbnails. I need to plan out the panels one at a time and then put them in a page and make sure that all flows correctly. I couldn't just sit down and draw something off the cuff and have it come out good. Like that's something for me, I need to plan it out like step by step. But when writing's a lot more looser for me. So again, experimenting is very important, especially if you're starting out, because you want to be able to figure out like your kind of like creative tics early on, so you can plan around them and have them work for you instead of against you.
All right. So, anything else?
I think
on this topic.
I think for that topic, as far as beginning, it's pretty.
That's a good place to start. Yeah.
It's satisfactory. I think it's rather satisfactory.
Of course, once you've launched into your story, you'll find yourself with plenty of other hurdles, but that'll give us some stuff to fill in the later episodes.
Absolutely. All right. So I think the only thing left now is to do some Q&A and announce the contest.
Yep.
So.
All right. So why don't you jump over to the Tumblr and retrieve our questions from last time?
You guys feel like
did we receive some from between last week and now?
We did get a few. So
all right. Well, should we answer those first?
Yes, I would say it's probably a good idea.
So go ahead, read those off.
All right. We are jumping in right now. So we actually got a bunch of suggestions, which thank you. Unova Brony gave us a bunch of suggestions. Tricky Steps sent us an email with a bunch of suggestions. We're looking over those. I've checked into a couple of them so far. Keep sending those if you got more suggestions. We did get 2.
It may wind up as a content spotlight later if we like them.
Exactly. So we got 2 questions from Tricky Step.
Okay.
So, question 1 is, Now that Trixie was reintroduced in an episode, do you think that she has any roles to play in future appearances in the show? What would you like to see her come back to do, if she did? So, do you think she'll come back in the show again, and if so, what would you like to see her do?
Realistically, I doubt it. I would like to see her again, but she has had her redemption, basically. I don't feel like they'd be able to build on their little morals for each episode by bringing her in again, because she's sort of a protagonist now. I mean, it would be interesting to see her character continue to be developed, but I just don't feel like it's realistically going to be an element of the show in the future.
Yeah, I would agree. I would love to see her come back in the show again, but the way that they kind of shoehorned her redemption in at the end makes me feel like they wanted to wrap up with that character and just kind of put her to bed, so to speak.
Yeah.
Boy, I had such a problem with it. No, but if she did come back, I think it would be as a legitimate protagonist.
Yeah.
Probably maybe to like bail the main six out of some sort of crisis at some point, if they like tied her into like a finale event or something where it's plot driven and she came back or something like that. I almost feel that it would be like too much fan service. Almost like it would be blatant fan service. There's no way they could make that into a actual legitimate plot point. It would done there specifically for the fans. So,
as much as we all know, Sethisto would love to see her again.
Yeah, he would. But yeah, I don't see her coming back. I doubt it. Like I said, I think they wanted to wash their hands of her with that last episode and her last minute, totally out of character, completely bullcrap redemption scene that took 2 sentences. Okay. All right. So
what's the other question?
The other question is Gilda in season 1, Gustav in season 2. We may not see another Griffin with the short time left in season 3, but would you like for the general race of Griffins to keep coming back throughout the show? I was hoping for more world building around them, but what would your take be?
Griffins. Well, you know, that map of Equestria that they made, that official map or whatever, does point to the presence of like a Griffin territory beyond the sea somewhere. I thought I heard some rumor about that possibly being in production, not necessarily for season 3. It might be for season 4, but I can't keep track of what's definitely true. I'm pretty sure there was no, evidence to officially support that yet. But I'd heard something about it, so I would say the fans of the Griffins don't need to completely throw in the towel yet. We might see a little more of them eventually.
Yeah, I'd love to see more Griffins, because the characters... I mean, Gilda was an interesting character, despite the fact that everyone hates her. I liked her, and I think there was a lot of potential, not just in her character, but in that race as a narrative device overall. It was interesting because, like you said, with the map, it shows that like Equestria isn't like the world; it's just like a nation.
It's a country.
It's like a country. So there's obviously more going on around that, and I would love to see more world building, talking about that a bit more. Is it out of the scope for the show's target demographic? Probably, but I think if they shoehorned it in, it wouldn't be too out of place. I don't think anyone would ask too many questions, but it would definitely satisfy the curiosity of people like us who are interested in seeing more of it. Will it happen in season 3? I don't think so.
Well, there's only one unannounced episode, so I'm guessing
unless it's like the Griffin Invasion episode. I don't think it'll probably happen.
Yeah.
But
well, I guess technically 2 unannounced episodes, because we don't actually know the content of the finale yet.
The Griffin Invasion Part 1 and 2. I don't know. Why would they invade? I don't know. They're meat eaters. They eat ponies.
Well, it's not going to be Part 1 and 2. We already know.
Yeah.
Megan McCarthy confirmed on Twitter that the finale is just a single episode this season.
I was just joking, dude. It's okay.
Okay. Well,
all
maybe the listeners didn't know that.
Maybe they. Come on, they gotta be.
Somebody has to be the voice of reason here.
Not you. You're not allowed.
Okay.
No. All right.
Well, somebody keeps asking you if you've seen Turnabout Storm yet.
I have not seen Turnabout Storm yet.
Was that a question from last week too?
I think the question last week was, did any of us see Turnabout Storm? And now it's, have you seen Turnabout Storm yet?
Yeah, to you, because I have seen it.
Okay.
So
no, I drew Trixie all week and went to work. I was up until 5:30 yesterday, working from I think 7 at night to 5:30 in the morning on the page of Trixie I posted. So No, I my list of stuff to read now is a mile long because of you people, so, and watch and whatever not. So I'll definitely get to it. Hopefully I'll do it this week. I gotta start making a list of like coherent things, like I'm watching this in this order and stuff like that. But I definitely want to because I love Phoenix Wright.
Yeah.
All right, the Nightmare Writer, who has an awesome icon of Kamen Rider Kiba. What do you feel about background ponies getting direct involvement with the main characters? Would you like it to be done more, or should it stay in the realms of fan characters? You want to field that one first, man?
I feel like as long as they, don't make it seem out of place for the show, I know the fans would like to see the main characters get to talk a little more with some of the more popular background characters. Give Lyra or Bonbon or Octavia or somebody that everybody likes have a few lines here and there, but I don't feel like it would have a negative impact on the story of the show unless they tried to force them in. If they need a role to be filled that seems to match the kind of character that those background characters appear to be, then I don't understand why you wouldn't use them. If they need a for some reason classical musician character, I really hope that they have the sense to use Octavia actually, rather than creating someone new out of the blue. But we'll see. I'm not really sure what the difference would be between writing lines for a classical music character coming from Octavia and making the fans happy, or writing them coming from some other pony they created and making the fans not as happy. I don't want them to write these lines in order to fit the characters into the show. I want them to use the characters if they've written lines that are appropriate for them.
Yeah, have the characters serve the narrative, not the narrative serve the characters.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. I would say if there's a role that can be filled for them, they should definitely do it. I think it's a slippery slope though, because there would, that no matter if all of a sudden like Octavia had like a speaking role, there would be like some people would be butthurt about it, 'cause someone's always butthurt.
Yeah, I can't really understand why that happens. What is it? Why people always complain about the show pandering to the fan base? Why is that bad if it's not negatively affecting the quality of the show? I can't understand why people get mad when their requests get answered.
Yeah, it's like, man, I'd really like to see this, and then they do it. What the fuck are you doing? Just like,
yeah,
you asked for it. So,
yeah,
I think
it's the internet and the inability to be pleased by anything.
I suppose so. There's
whatever. That topic's always been a bit of a bone of contention for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you really could have a unicorn horn or a Pegasus wings as a human, assuming they are functional, which would you want? Would you rather have neither of them?
I think you and I are sticking with our... I think I can speak for you, that we're both sticking with our OC's features here.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah, I think we chose what we chose for a reason.
Yeah, I'm not just a Pegasus to fit my name. I prefer the Pegasi. I would like to have the wings over a horn if I had to choose.
Would you have them in real life, though, if they worked? That's the question. Would you sprout wings? If you could sprout wings and fly around, would you?
I guess. What do you mean, like, in terms of obviously people would be looking at you like, what?
I'm assuming.
Yeah, I guess that's what the question's asking about. Would you want to do it in terms of?
Would you become a social outcast and possibly a science experiment for the sake of?
That's a good question. I don't know.
I would say yes, because I can wear a hat. Keep it on the DL, because I'm already lazy enough as it is, so I don't even have to move my arm to grab a drink from across the table. I am down for that. I am totally down for that. And then I could, like, draw, like, multiple panels at once by holding multiple pens. Dude, come on. I'm so down. So down for this. Yeah, I'd do it. I don't leave the house very often anyways. No one probably ever does this.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Alright, next question.
Knotted Shoelace asks, what are you wanting to see in the next Rarity episode? More Rarity being Rarity. Whatever they do, I'm sure it'll be amazing, because she's the best character in the show.
Yeah, Rarity is often an exaggerated character. Her responses to everything are very dramatic and noticeable, and the way she's written really makes her funny. I don't necessarily I don't know who my favorite member of the main six is, actually. I know I prefer Derpy over all other ponies, but I don't have, like, rankings within the main six. They're all great in their own ways. And Rarity strikes me as one of the funniest members of the main six when it gets right down to it, just because her exaggerated personality just causes everything she says to be funny somehow.
Yeah. So I mean, as long as she stays in character, does what she does best, be overly dramatic and still very oddly deep character for a children's show, then yeah. I guess if I want to get specific, I would say that rumor of her having a duet with Octavia would be pretty badass. I wouldn't mind seeing that because that would answer the background pony thing and Rarity at the same time. So do it, do it, do it, make it good.
We'll have to wait and see if episode 12 does in fact turn out to be about Rarity. I hope it does. But we talked about that last week.
20 copper coins and a hat asked, where did you get that sexy hat? Internet? My OC has no name and no background, so I don't know anything about him other than he's me. And I got my hat at
So
Target.
do you own an equivalent hat?
I do, and it's beat up. And I don't remember where I got it. I got it a long time ago.
It's still a fedora, though. Everyone likes fedoras.
I don't know, man. A lot of people hate them. There's a lot of hate. So, I'm one of the proponents of said headgear, but not everyone agrees. But they're wrong. Anyway.
Next question.
Next question. Brony asks, what would happen if an MLP movie came out on the hub? Would you get hyped? Or would you think otherwise? If it came out on the hub, I would be so down for that, because that would mean that the plot was written specifically for the confines of the duration of the movie, which is probably 90 minutes. That's usually the TV special sort of thing. I think there'd be more than enough time to give any plotline they could come up with adequate room to breathe and wouldn't have to rush it like they do in the two parts. And because it's not a theatrical release, they wouldn't be pandering to any sort of advertisers or outside groups, and the quality from the show would remain. So I would be
I feel like if they ended up in theaters, it might actually be too far off from how the main show is to feel appropriate.
Yeah.
I'd rather see it as a TV movie than a theaters movie.
Exactly. So yeah, I'd be totally down. All right. Frost asks
Somebody
again.
asks in the chat, Brony, curious, are you chewing on something?
Yes, I'm having lemon-shaped hard cookies, and they're very good.
You've been eating those for this whole episode.
I know. They're right there, and they were free. Can't help it. You have to like try and edit the sound and get my chewing out, and it won't work. Alright, I won't have food next episode. This is the last beta episode, so I'm taking advantage of our unprofessionalness. Alright.
I'm still not going to have notes next episode.
Dude!
Okay.
Making us look bad, bro.
Next question?
Alright, you know someone's gonna ask this, since you're all about fanfics, let's just get out of the way. Will you review My Little Dashie or Anthropology?
I don't know. Anthropology, I've heard, is very good. I haven't had the time to read it yet because it's pretty long.
I haven't read that either. I should, though. Goddamn, more things to read.
And My Little Dashie is an interesting point of discussion in the fanfic community. Some people like it, some people completely hate it. The author of it completely hates it, by the way. Yeah, I'm not really looking to go read that anytime soon. It's not a topic that interests me in the first place.
You haven't read it yet?
No, I haven't read it. Have you?
My Little Dashie? I've read it.
Everyone's read My Little Dashie, I guess.
Figured, how
I have
I
never
not read it?
My Little Dashie.
Well, it was okay. I mean, you're not missing out on too much.
Mm-hmm.
It was a little
like
dramatic. Might be a good word for it. I was gonna say it's definitely like intentionally trying to like manipulate your emotions as opposed to just telling a story and having it be naturally emotional. I guess. And the whole time I read it,
that was the point. It was just a attack the feels story.
The whole time I couldn't even get too emotional about it though, because the whole time I couldn't help but imagine Rainbow Dash as an actual horse because it was in real life with like wings. That was what my mind went the whole time. I was imagining this big horse walking around in the guy's house, and it was really weird. I don't know. So that kind of ruined it for me. As far as reviewing either of those, we don't really review fics on the show, though. We spotlight them, but we don't usually review them. because
And we might do critiques of stuff on later episodes, but only if it's
Yeah,
submitted by its own author.
if creators submit their work and they want it critiqued, then we will review it. But I have no problem reviewing official product, like episodes and the comic that we just did. But I would be uncomfortable reviewing someone else's work without their permission, simply because that's, I don't know, it just doesn't seem like something.
Yeah, it just seems like bad form to
Yeah.
to
Even though it's out in the public domain, quote-unquote.
grade someone on their performance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I want the show to be much more like a resource to help grow the community, not to critique it too much. You know, I want it to be like a kind of like everyone's welcome sort of deal, and not be like.
Yeah, we're not trying to
because
support only the best here.
We're creators ourselves, so we're not trying to like put on a critic hat and like try and like put that on high kind of thing, like, oh, we can judge you. No, we're just like people doing it ourselves, trying to help everybody else if we can. So it's not a review show. It's just like a dialogue sort of thing, and that's why we're doing spotlights instead of reviews. Just highlight things that we like, not put it on a grade scale or anything. Just say, hey, this is cool. You should check it out. So we won't be reviewing those. We probably won't be reviewing anything unless someone submits it as a critique. And that'll be very informal. It won't be a grade scale, anything either. It'll just be like, this is what's working, this is what could be improved upon in our opinions. Take it for what it's worth and roll with it and just keep going.
Yeah. And there are plenty of other places where you can get your work critiqued in the actual
and the more
style of grading.
Traditional fashion. And they'll probably do it better than we could anyways, so everyone wins. Paleo asks, what's our favorite Pokemon?
I don't know if I have a specific favorite Pokemon. I like all the grass types. That's about it. I play with the grass type starter every time I play Pokemon. And yes, I have like every main Pokemon game.
Hell yeah.
Do you play it too?
I do. I'm obsessed.
Did you hear that about? Yeah, somebody just said in the chat they just announced Pokemon X and Y versions a couple days ago, 6th generation. I
screamed like a little girl. Not even gonna pretend that I didn't like freak out. I woke up, I checked Twitter. Someone said X and Y. Looked at the review. It wasn't even awake yet, and I just flipped my shit. It was beautiful. As far as my favorite Pokemon is Sandshrew. I don't know why. He's just awesome. And I use him all the time, even though he's garbage. He's like 40th percentile or something.
Yeah. I think my favorite in terms of appearance is probably Snivy, the grass type starter from the 5th generation.
Snivy's a bamf. I like Sandile as well. For some reason my two favorite Pokemon are ground types. And I don't usually I don't know. Sandile was a winner too. I have a little plush of Sandile. He's a boss.
Alright. Any more questions?
Favorite anime? Is that a question for us or is that a question directly in the chat? Because I can answer that. Can you answer that? Do you watch anime?
Not really, except for the Pokemon one I used to watch. So
person.
I guess I'm gonna have to go ahead and say Pokemon again.
Oh my god.
Because I don't watch a whole lot of them.
I'm gonna fix that. Are you going to BronyCon? I'll bring like a huge hard drive like stuff. Just
yes, I'm gonna be at BronyCon.
Me too. All right, watch. I'll just bring you a watch list full of junk. All right, my favorite anime, because I can't answer this because I'm quite the connoisseur. I think right now, what I'm watching at the moment, I definitely am digging Psycho Pass. New episode comes out tomorrow. Totally stoked to watch it. And in general, I think probably the thing that I just overall really enjoyed like the most would either be Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust, Gurren Lagann, or FLCL. Those three are totally up there. So Code Geass is really good too.
All right, well.
Nightmare Rider asks, "One of you recognize Kamen Rider Kiva? Do either of you watch Tokusatsu?" That would be me. That's my guilty pleasure. Sentai, Kamen Rider, Ultraman, Godzilla, into all that stuff. That's my I haven't watched any of the new Kamen Riders or the new Sentai. The newest Sentai I watched was Samurai Sentai Shinkenger, and even then I'm not done with that. It's just I don't have enough hard drive space. But I've seen every Godzilla movie. That and Ultraman was my jam when I was a little kid, like 5-10 years old. Like that was all I ever did. I had like tons of action figures. My favorite Kamen Rider is probably Kamen Rider Black, just because it was just the one guy being a badass. I thought like the Kamen Rider was cooler as a one guy, not before they started doing the team thing. And then since Sentai, I've only really watched Shinkenger, like a lot of. So I'm just gonna go with that by default. Yeah, now I'm getting really nerdy. So like this is just like nerdier than ponies nerdy. All the Sentai stuff
That's
is all
pretty
like,
hard to achieve right there.
That's Sentai and is what they based Power Rangers off of. So it's like all that stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, he's just gonna say okay on that one.
I don't really know what you're talking about. Somebody keeps asking, back on the Pokemon topic, what do we think of Keldeo? Presumably because Keldeo kind of looks like a My Little Pony.
Does it? I don't know what that is.
What?
I don't even know what that is. When I say I play Pokemon, but I haven't finished any of the recent ones.
It's one of the legendaries that you can only get from the events they have at GameStop and whatever.
Oh God. I don't leave the house. How am I supposed to get that?
Yeah, I have Keldeo in my game. Then again, I have everything. I've been building my collection since the 3rd generation and transferring to each new game every time. So I literally have a complete collection obtained legitimately.
Dude, you're a monster.
So
the only time that I ever got close to getting all the Pokemon was in the first game. I had everything but Machamp. And I was 10 years old, and that shit was my jam, and I was totally stoked to get Machamp. I was going to get him like a few days later from my friend, because I was going to trade Machoke. And I was in the movie theater, playing Pokemon, leveling up my 96 Venusaur. This is before I knew about Rare Candy Code, by the way, so this was legit 96, alright? And someone bumps into me, dropped my Game Boy, cartridge hits the ground, data's erased, I lost everything. I never cried harder in my life. No joke, broke down in the theater because I lost all my Pokemon.
That happened to me once when I accidentally sat on my Game Boy on the couch.
Dude.
It
sucks.
Any more questions in the...
Last minute question. We will answer one more question. And then we're going to go. One more question. So if you're going to throw one out there, you better make sure it's freaking good.
No, there are a couple in the chat.
There are a couple already? We've missed some?
There's favorite genre of music. There's on the topic of the animes from earlier.
Oh my God.
What are your opinions on Toho Project? Which I play those games, so that's something I could actually talk about on there. But
I have no idea what that is.
It's highly difficult vertical shooters. Those you know, like the enemies rain down hundreds of thousands of bullets on you, and you have this tiny little hitbox on your character, and you have to navigate between these impossible amounts of enemy fire.
Yeah, those games.
It looks incredibly difficult. It's actually not too hard once you've practiced it for a while, so it's great for blowing people's minds playing it live.
Dude, my friend was getting into those, and I was just like, too much overstimulation for my brain. He was playing all the Japanese ones too, because he's Japanese, so he gets like stuff from Japan all the time, and they were just like Seizure City on top of bullet like fields, and I'm just like, oh my God, how are you doing this?
The only other one that I saw was what's your favorite genre of music?
Favorite genre of music for me is probably, I listen to more metal, but I think my favorite is drum and bass. I dig drum and bass. Like Pendulum is my fucking jam. I love them. Hold Your Color, best album ever.
I always hate answering this question because I don't really have a favorite genre of music because I don't listen to much music. And that bothers people.
It does.
So, yeah, I don't think I have any specific category that I like strong enough to...
Your favorite genre is good? Your favorite genre is good music?
Yeah, that sounds right.
There you go. See? That's an intelligent sounding answer to a question you want to deflect.
Alright, so...
Okay,
why don't you go ahead and explain the contest?
Alright, so, this is the first contest for the show. And, so we've
Potential free stuff.
Potential free stuff. So if you like free stuff, you should pay attention to this part. It's important. So we've been talking back and forth a little bit for the last couple of weeks, even before we started the show, is what did we want on the show? Because we want to be a resource to the fiction community. We want to be able to cover things that they would be interested in, things that would help them write better, or just things they'd be interested in hearing from. So the contest that we decided to come up with to help us out is, instead of trying to figure out what the audience want, we should ask the audience directly. So what kind of sections or segments or ideas would you like to see on the show going forward? So
like today we did content spotlight and official material review and roundtable and whatever. Each one of those was its own little section. Yeah. Is there anything else that we're missing within reason, within the realm of storytelling that we try to cover on this podcast that you would like to see?
Yeah, and within the realm of possibility, like, I want you to interview Lauren Faust every week. Like, no. So, something within the realm of possibility and fits in thematically with the show itself, which I'm sure about this point you guys know what it is. Ideas of things you would like to see on the show. So, we will pick one section, unless there's, like, really good ideas, we'll probably pick one. And that idea not only will be integrated into the show, but you also get a free t-shirt, because I make t-shirts, pony t-shirts, on my soon-to-be released website, Merch Curious. So you can pick any of the designs that I have and send you out a shirt. So a couple different shirt designs, like this is one of them, like Rainbow Dash crashing through a cloud. I have this one of Lyra and Bonbon. So I can put any of these designs. I have a couple more as well. There's a lot on my DeviantArt. So I'll put them on a shirt, either a black or a white shirt, and I'll send them out, and you'll have a cool pony shirt of artwork for being awesome and suggesting a new segment of the show for us.
So where are they suggesting it? On the Tumblr?
I would submit them to the Tumblr, probably the easiest way to keep track of them. You can submit anonymously, so you don't need a Tumblr account to submit to the Tumblr chat. So if you have an idea, just drop it there. You can submit anonymously, but that would make confirming who you are difficult. So
I think for this, I think for the sake of the fact that we're giving stuff away, we'd better ask that you're logged in to Tumblr.
So if you don't have a Tumblr and don't feel like making a Tumblr, I would suggest sending us an email then. So it's goldenoaksbookclub@gmail.com, and that'll be in the show notes, which we'll be releasing momentarily since the show's about to end. So think about, stuff you'd like to see on the show. The ones that are best will get a free shirt. So that's the first contest. And with that, the second episode of Golden Oaks Book Club comes to an end. So thank you all for being here.
Next time we'll do a lot of these segments again. We were going to plan the next date. I think we were just going to make it 2 weeks this time.
Yes.
Right?
We were talking about show schedule, and as fun as these are, PRB's working on his new fic. He's writing 2 fan fictions now.
I'm starting a new fic, and I'm also just finally got a start on the sequel to Shipping and Handling, which I know a lot of my readers have been waiting for quite a while.
Yes, and I'm working on finishing issue 1 of Recovery and starting issue 2. So because we're busy making stuff, not just the podcast, but other things as well, and due to the fact that we don't want to shortchange you guys by not having enough time to adequately prepare the show, we think going forward we're probably going to do a show every 2 weeks, so we have enough time to read the suggestions you guys send us, since we get a bunch of them. Make sure that we can secure a guest. Going forward, we definitely want to start having guests on the show, so we can kind of liven things up a bit.
Usually at the end of the show, we'll try to announce who our next show's guest is.
Yes.
But this week, we don't actually know who's going to be on next time.
Which is why we're taking the 2 weeks to put that all together.
Yeah.
So
next time, we'll do our usual stuff. We'll also review the latest episode. Keep Calm and Flutter On will have aired by that point, so we'll do our usual episode review. And we will have a guest. We'll talk to them about their work, as well as ask them to participate in our roundtable discussion for the week.
Yep. So until 2 weeks from now, which would be 23rd, I think, right?
Yeah.
I can do math. Yes, so we'll see you on the 23rd of January. If you have, again, any questions, fic suggestions, and again, contests, either send us an email or drop something in the Tumblr. And thank you for watching. We'll talk to you all again in a few
If any of you came in late and wanted to see the beginning part or whatever, this will be up on the YouTube channel, which I'm assuming you're also going to put in the show notes.
Yep, the YouTube channel will also be in the show notes. It probably won't be uploaded immediately after, because I'm going to take some time and edit it down, because we do kind of have a little bit of dead space as we fumble around trying to be professional and failing. So I'm going to try and cut it down a little bit so there's less dead space and just kind of goes from point to point a bit more smoothly, so it's a bit more of a pleasant watching experience. So if you guys missed anything and want to see what we talked about in the beginning, the link to the YouTube channel is in the show notes, and it will be posted hopefully within a day or so. Alright,
so we'll see you in 2 weeks, everyone.